Hello, I'm Gil Zilkha. Welcome to Essential Classical Music. This video is taken from my larger video on the consensus reference recordings of the core classical music repertoire. Not my choices, but rather the collective critical consensus that has filtered down through the years, across generations, across continents, to which you have also contributed. And if you agree with my choices, or if you think the consensus lies elsewhere, as always, feel free to comment, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, now we come to Mahler. And you would think there would be a lot of debate with Mahler, but actually, in terms of reference versions, the ones that have, gotten the most mention, risen to the top of the scuttlebutt, it's a little bit more straightforward than you might think, especially with the first, this very famous version from Raphael Kubelik with the Bavarian Radio Symphony, pretty much a classic since it was made. Not much debate there, really. And then for the second, we have a conductor who recorded it once in the studio. We have a few live versions as well. And he's sort of considered almost synonymous with the work, and that's Klemperer. This is his 1962 Philharmonia version. Elizabeth Schwarzkopf is the soprano soloist, and it's pretty much held sway as the reference since then, even though there are a lot of other really great Mahler seconds, not to mention his contemporary Bruno Walter as well. Now for the third. I'm going to say for the third, this one's maybe a little bit less straightforward. I'm going to say that we have two references, and they come from opposite sides of the Atlantic. One is Leonard Bernstein. I would say this is really he did wonderful Mahler, of course. He did two cycles, the New York Philharmonic from the 60s and the one from the 80s that was a little bit patched together. But I would say from his earlier cycle, this is really the cream of the crop, his third, recording of the third. And it's also very much a reference recording for the work. However, there's another recording from the other side of the Atlantic that you just still hear about every time you are discussing the great versions, and that's Jascha Horenstein with the London Symphony, recorded in 1970. It's a smaller label, it's the Unicorn label, but we're not talking about availability, we're talking about critical praise. And I think in terms of critical praise, these two are the ones that I think together occupy that place with regards to the third. Now with the fourth, this one's a little bit more straightforward. It's sort of the obvious choice in terms of the one that you hear most about. George Szell with the Cleveland Orchestra, Judith Raskin is the soprano soloist. Not much more to say there. That is the reference for the fourth. Now for the fifth and the sixth, and you might already guess who it's going to be just because I say both of them together, I would say the classic reference versions are the ones from Barbaroli with the New Philharmonia. Not much else to say there, really, especially in the case of the fifth. I think that's the one that especially is seen as iconic. The sixth is a little bit more controversial because he takes a slower tempo in that first movement, but it's still, by and large, compared to any other version out there, it's the one that you still hear the most about. And now we come to the ninth. And I'm going to start with a live recording. Actually, these are both live recordings from all the way back in 1938, and that is this iconic version from Bruno Walter with the Vienna Philharmonic. Of course, this was at the precipice of the Anschluss, so it has that sort of historical aura to it, lending to the intensity of the performance itself. And this is one that still to this day occupies this place of one of the Mahler recordings that you have to hear. Now, the other live version is from almost half a century later, and that, of course, is Herbert von Karajan and the Berlin Philharmonic, one of Karajan's most universally praised recordings, and definitely one of the great Mahler ninths. I could have included a couple of more, but I'm just going to stop with those two. I think those two do get on, by and large, the most mention among Mahler ninths. And then finally for Mahler, we also have to talk, of course, about his great song cycle, Das Lied von der Erde. And this one I'm going to start with one of the most famous, not only Mahler recordings, but really recordings of anything ever made, and that's this one. Kathleen Ferrier and Julius Patzak is the tenor. Ferrier is the alto, with Bruno Walter conducting the Vienna Philharmonic. Just an iconic recording. It's a little bit divisive. I think there are a lot of people who don't respond to the timbre of Ferrier's voice. It is a little bit of an acquired taste, I will admit. And of course, it's 1952 sound, so it's a little bit older. So this recording, as is the case so often with recordings of voices, it can be polarizing. But I definitely think it deserves its place still with the unique artistry that Ferrier brought to the piece. And so the question is then, do we have a more modern reference version that stands out? And I think we do. And that is the one conducted by Otto Klemperer in the early 60s with Christa Ludwig, the alto, and Fritz Wunderlich, the tenor. So you can't beat that array of soloists. It's recorded very well, and this one is also considered a reference for the piece. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, I hope you'll also take time to click the like and subscribe buttons. And with that, I want to wish you all a great day and happy listening.